Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third podcast episode, Brew-TEA-ful Friendships. This is DiversiTea with M and V. Today, we will be discussing intercultural friendships. We hope to empower and inspire our listeners to continue to seek friendships with folks outside of their cultural comfort zone. To start us off, I will introduce myself. My name is Valerie Mora. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I am one of the GAs in the UFMC.
And hi everyone, my name is Niso. I use she, her, hers pronouns as well, and I am the other UFMC graduate assistant.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a senior at USD, and my pronouns are also she, her, hers.
Hello, my name is Ximena, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I'm a sophomore at USD and also an intern at the UFMC.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you. For today's episode, I will be serving as the moderator. To frame our conversation, I wanted to define what are intercultural relationships or friendships. So, intercultural friendships refer to relationships with persons from cultures different from our own. These relationships can create strong bonds where everyone learns from each other and support each other's growth. For example, when I started my graduate school journey, I met folks from different cultural backgrounds. And one of those friends was Miso. Miso, as she will share later on, one of the identities that she holds is her Korean American identity. And she was gracious enough to share her Korean culture with me through food. So one of the things that I tasted from Korean food was kimchi, or even going to KBBQ at Mana on Convoy. So really appreciative of that and developing a deeper respect for the Korean culture and admiring the beauty that exists within it. With that being said, I'm curious to learn from our guests what experiences they have with intercultural friendships. To start us off, what are some salient social identities you hold?
For me personally, I think the most salient social identities that I hold are being a Black woman. But I think also the identities that I hold they're a bit dynamic depending on who I'm with. So if I'm with a group of other Black people, like my Blackness might be, more at the forefront of my mind. But if I'm, with a group of really diverse people, something else that we might have in common might be at the forefront of those identities.
Some salient identities that I hold, I'm a Mexicana woman, so that's one of my strongest identities that is apparent, from when I meet people, but talking about like friendships and relationships, I think that's something that I always try to stay true to myself and not hinder from sharing my culture, being weary to just let people know how I do certain things or the things that I truly value and are important to me. So I think those shine from like without, and I think that all comes with experience and growing up and being in college. That can definitely sometimes be a challenge, but for me, I think that's something that I always like to stay true to myself and hold dear to my heart.
Yeah, similarly, I identify with being a woman, but also my Asian American / Korean American identity is very salient to me. And I think something that also kind of differentiates me is kind of my immigrant identity as well. And so holding this duality of my Korean culture from the motherland, but also the dominant American culture in the US. Similarly to Ashley, like the way I present myself in the different spaces that I interact with and where I feel more salient, it depends on the environment that I'm in.
Thank you all so much for sharing your salient identities with me. I'm hearing that they come out differently depending on the situation you're a part of. And so, do you hold any friendships with folks outside of your racial or cultural group? And if so, how have these friendships impacted you?
I hold a lot of friendships with people outside of my cultural group. I think that's one of the expectations that kind of just naturally happens when you go to a predominantly white school as well. And that's something that I was thinking about, when I was applying to colleges, if I wanted to go to a historically Black college or if I wanted to go to a PWI. And I mean, there was a lot of reasons why I chose USD, led me to choosing this school and ending up here. It was definitely something that I was thinking about, going to a school with the majority of students that don't look like me or have the same, experiences growing up that I did. But I think I've been able to learn a lot about myself through my friendships with people that don't share the same cultural background as me. And I think it's also something that makes friendships really special is when you can share your culture with another person, because obviously culture is something that's so special and beloved to so many of us. So being able to talk about it and share that with my friends has really helped enrich my friendships. And then also, the same when they share their culture with me, it makes our friendship grow. And I feel like I can connect with them on a deeper level.
Yeah, similarly as Ashley, I think for me, going to a predominantly white high school as well, that was definitely more of a challenge. But I think I've been naturally like just drawn to people who are culturally different than me or hold the same identity and cultures as I do, just because I think I stem from someone who loves to learn about different experiences that people hold. And just I think how they navigate life, I think is a really super interesting perspective, just because I think we don't always pay attention to the fact that we have so many different guiding principles that like we've been raised by or just like we've been influenced by. One of the moments that most comes into my mind from high school and also in taking that into college and just learning more about different cultures, but there was a large group of the Asian culture in my high school as well, and especially of Indian heritage. And that was really cool, the experience that I got to actually take part in their South Asian cultural show at the end of my senior year. So we had like dance practices every Saturday. I got to meet their parents, got to like be invited into their household, which is something even that's super honoring, and just learn their dances, learn about their food. And like, it was just a whole immersive experience. I think that's the first time that I've really been taken in. From me, I think being an outsider, quote unquote. And like, from that experience, I think I got to learn a lot about my friends and just like even similarities that we had that I never thought about.
Yeah, I totally agree with y'all. It's so special to learn more about different racial identities and ethnicities. Like for me, I feel really, really lucky to have an amazing and diverse group of peers and friends within my own cohort. Even within the Asian American umbrella, there's so many different diverse ethnicities. My friend Mei Zhang teaching me about her Hmong identity, who is within the Asian American identity, but is so different from my Korean identity as well. Learning about my Black peers and their experience through higher education. Similar with Valerie and Jocelyn, with that really teach me more about their Mexican American identity and culture as well, through their food, through celebrations, through holidays. And so even within the past 2 years I've been here, I think the diversity of my cohort has just brought me a new light and new experiences that I'm very grateful for.
Yes, food is such a great way to introduce someone to your culture. So if y'all ever want to, hook me up with some of your favorite dishes, I'm down for that. Socially distant though, of course. I know a few of you have already alluded to it, but what things that you've learned about yourself from these relationships? Specifically, how have you grown or how have you seen yourself grow?
For me, I think I'm always constantly learning something new, but also within finding new things about different cultures and races, there's so many similarities that I find within my own culture that I do celebrate within traditions, but also just similarities in vibes. And like for an example, in Korean culture, there's a lot of spicy food that happens. And so being able to like talk about the different spices that are used, not in just Korean cuisine, but in Mexican cuisine, Indian cuisine, and being able to share even that, I think is really beautiful. And being able to try different things. I know Valerie loves mole and curry, and it's something that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that is similar, but comes from two different parts of the world. And so being able to find those connections is something that I find really beautiful and to learn about. One of the beauties of living in San Diego is the diversity that comes with San Diego and just being able to see the beauties of different cultures as well.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Misa just shared, I think I've been able to open myself up to a lot of different perspectives. It's kind of like a running joke on social media right now, but like I feel like a lot of us have had really similar experiences and like we're all like living the same lives, you know. But when I've been able to, you know, broaden my horizons, meet people from different cultural backgrounds, just being able to hear about their values and how their culture has impacted them growing up and like their mindsets and everything has been really fascinating. And it's something that, you know, you can't really just learn on like a surface level conversation. So having people who, you know, feel comfortable enough to like open up and really share like experiences that have shaped them into who they are now has been really eye-opening for me. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of having these friendships.
Yeah, similarly, I really liked what Ashley said. I think a big thing with that, with like opening up to others and sharing your own culture, is trust. And I think that's one of the things that I love to establish the most with people, just always letting them know that they can feel comfortable sharing things from their culture with me, and you know, I'm going to be as accepting as I possibly can. And think that's what really establishes and like blooms those beautiful friendships, when you're able to just know that that person is, you know, going through the same things as you, but also has like things that they do on the day-to-day basis that are way different than maybe we even thought that would be like so completely different from our point of view. For me, it's I've been able to really just form those deep-rooted friendships and find people who I really connect with, not just because they're my friend, but also because, you know, I can find things that I can really appreciate and love from their own culture. It's amazing to see how people are so willing to like accept, and sometimes it's not so easy, but you're just going to appreciate who they are as a person.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm hearing this just appreciation of culture, a broadening your understanding of different cultures. A story came to mind, and I know Misa has heard this already, but I'm gonna share anyway. The first time I went to a Thai restaurant and I ordered Thai food, I assumed that Mexican spiciness is the same as Thai spiciness. I ordered pineapple fried rice, and then she was like, a spice level 1 to 10, what do you want it? And I was like, I can handle a 9. Oh, let me tell you, I ordered a 9. She brought it over. It was really, really good. And I was sweating to the point where she brought over a pitcher of water and left it at my table for my partner and I, because my partner also got his pad thai at a 9. All the workers were staring at us from the counter and just trying to be like, you know, really hospitable with bringing us drinks. And she actually ended up bringing us 2 pitchers of water. Yes, food is a good way to understand culture. That definitely broadened my experiences with food. And now I definitely just order it too when I go to Thai restaurants. I came across this article in The Guardian, and it was talking about how intercultural relationships allow for perspectives to be broadened, and how they also challenge the way we perceive certain cultural groups. Essentially, they were claiming that learning about different cultures or social identities outside of your own can help mitigate any implicit biases you have. So would you say that you agree or disagree with the Guardian article? And if you could please share why.
Yeah, I think I agree to a certain extent. I think, you know, obviously meeting people from different backgrounds can, you know, help you broaden your horizons and mitigate implicit bias. But it can kind of, if you're just relying on that to like check your implicit biases, you could also sometimes end up like tokenizing these people. I think that that can be super dangerous because, you know, if you meet one person from a different cultural background, you think that that's how all of them are, you know, even if it's positive or negative, that can be a little bit dangerous when it comes to generalizing and stereotyping and grouping people of color together too.
Yeah, I thought of similarly that, but like the difference between culture appreciation and appropriation, and just knowing, like, you know, if you learn about something, like, where does that stem from? Do all people of the same culture practice that certain thing? Or we have to be really careful to not just take one thing that we know and just automatically apply it to every single person that's part of that culture. Always be checking yourself and doing your own research, or, you know, to really understand and fully get a grasp of whatever idea you're trying to maybe put into your own practice, or, you know, just learn about different things. So just keeping an open mind and not saying that labeling, I think, and like stereotyping too. So just being careful with that. And but with that also comes with like knowledge and being gentle with yourself and growing, because we do make mistakes and we're human as well.
Yeah, Ashley and Ximena, I totally agree with both of y'all. I think a point Ashley made was on not being tokenizing that one friend. And I think an example that I come out of is like, just because you have a diverse group of friends or you're friends with different folks with different races, there's a common thing that I've heard of like, oh, like it's okay, I can say these racial slurs because I have friends. And I'm like, no, no, no. The fact that like you do have friends, you should be more cognizant about the history behind why those racial slurs shouldn't be said. And so being able to be cognizant about the language that you're using and not tokenizing your friends like that. However, I think I do agree with the article itself because growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood and also growing up in my own culture that in Korea it's very homogenous. The predominant people are Koreans in Korea. Wow, what a concept, right? But because I had such a small network of folks to engage with, it was hard for me to learn about other races, other ethnicities outside of the ones in my school or my home, except like when I was seeing TV or like artists in TV, all I saw were stereotypes when I was growing up. Being able to grow up in a new environment with a lot more diverse friends really helped me to check myself and my own implicit biases that I've been socialized into because of the media that I was exposed to when I was younger, and also because of the lack of diversity that I did experience when I was younger as well. And being able to be like, oh, like I have friends who don't fit this stereotype, so I know this stereotype isn't true. And so being able to grow from that and also be exposed to more of it so that I can check my own biases as well.
Yes, thank you all for bringing up those key points. Definitely don't want folks to be tokenizing or using their intercultural friendships as an excuse or path to engage in behavior that promotes oppression or prejudice or discrimination. So being careful with what you're learning from a person. You shouldn't just make generalizations based on one person and perpetuate those stereotypes onto others. I wanted to open it up to our guests if they had any closing remarks.
I think advice that I would give to somebody that's apprehensive about going to like a PWI versus a school that's like more culturally comfortable for them, keep an open mind. You're going to meet a lot of great people, and stepping out of your comfort zone is definitely a good thing, and it will bring a lot of great memories and experiences into your life and open you up to a whole new world of perspectives, and it's going to be awesome.
Thank you to our guests today for joining us. I really appreciated listening to your perspectives. I want to leave our listeners with which friends have shared their culture with you. Give them a shout out in our comment section on our YouTube channel at the UFMC or on our Instagram at USD UFMC to be entered into our raffle for some tea swag. Again, thank you so much, Ashley, Ximena, and Miso. The conversation doesn't have to end here. Thank you for sharing your Brew-TEA-ful friendships with us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.